Tonight, no change in high levels of lead in Port Pirie children leaves doctors scratching their heads, and the Roos take out the A-grade footy championships in Broken Hill.
This is Southern Cross News with Fraser Goldsworthy.
Good evening. New statistics have found little or no change in the high levels of lead found in young children living in Port Pirie. The latest results of blood tests for lead levels in children aged 5 and under has SA health professionals wondering where they turn next.
A disappointing outcome from the latest round of testing on nearly 500 local children.
This year it seems to have plateaued off, and indeed the results show that there's been a deterioration and there's been a slight increase in lead levels in our children.
Dr. Simon says testing is measured against what is considered to be an average level of lead in children at around 4.6 micrograms per 1 decilitre of blood.
For the lead levels which are below less than 5 micrograms per decilitre, there's been a 2.6% deterioration compared with this time last year. So there's been a 2 to 3% deterioration.
The latest findings have shown more than 50 kids under the age of 2 in Port Pirie returned a dangerously high reading above the 5 micrograms per decilitre benchmark, meaning the amount of lead in the air from the smelter dust has risen in the past year.
So what we would like is all children to be below 5 microgram per decilitre.
Port Pirie has always fought the consequences of airborne lead-contaminated dust from its smelter industries. This dust, even in small amounts, can be toxic when inhaled or ingested. Schools continue to enforce the importance of children washing their hands and that play equipment is wiped down.
Because our young children have a developing brain and their nerves are developing, they're more vulnerable, which can affect their ability to learn and grow to their full potential.
Nearstar continues with the 6-month redevelopment of its smelter in Port Pirie, primarily to reduce lead emission levels. It involves the decommissioning and demolition of the existing sinter plant, cutting down the amount of sulphur released into the atmosphere. Rachel Nell, Southern Cross News.
The administrator of REM has spoken of the Whyalla community's strength and determination over the last 16 months. Speaking to Southern Cross News, Mark Mentha says the economic and social factors surrounding the company made for a bumpy ride.
As Sanjeev Gupta took the keys to his new steel plant, it marked the end of Corder Mentha's tough task to get the steelworks back on its feet. Mr. Mentha's organisation took over from Grant Thornton a week after the Arian facility went under last year. He says it's been a challenging ride.
I turn over about $6.5 billion. 6,000 employees, 30,000 customers, 10,000 creditors, so the complexity is huge.
KM managed to find $300 million in savings across the business, but it came at a cost.
There was a lot riding on that pay decrease, but we had to make the steel business and the mining operations more competitive.
Then came a statewide electricity blackout, which nearly crippled the steelworks operations. He says workers almost experienced a disaster.
What I've experienced is they've been through as tough as it gets, so they're incredibly resilient.
But out of the darkness came the light, as 2 strong bids were made by the New Lake Consortium and GFG Alliance, with the latter successfully purchasing the plant. Mr. Mentha says the Whyalla community has been brave in the face of adversity. He says their steely determination to fight for their community has brought about a happy ending.
They're incredibly grateful, incredibly respectful, and as I said, very resilient as a result of what's occurred here.
John Hunt, Southern Cross News.
An Ernabella man has fronted the Port Augusta Magistrates Court today on a raft of charges relating to breaching an intervention order. Reporter Amelia Simpson has more.
A man appeared here at the Port Augusta Magistrates Court today facing charges of aggravated assault and breach of bail. It's alleged Ernabella man Isaac Wells broke an intervention order after being charged with aggravated assault in April. The court heard that on Monday the 10th of April at 8:30am his spouse Sharon Buzzacott was walking to work at a skill hire office in Ernabella when Wells began shouting. He then allegedly kicked her in the left leg and continued to hit and kick her as she went inside the office, throwing rocks at the building while remaining outside. Ms Buzzacott then called police and Wells was arrested. It was then found he already had an outstanding intervention order issued in 2012 which was changed in 2013 to allow for contact. The court heard that he was given bail on the 7th of May this year before breaching these conditions again last month. His lawyer told the court his client had time to think about his actions after spending 3 weeks behind bars. Wells has been bailed to his Ernabella address where he'll face court again in December.
New South Wales Shadow Water Minister has likened the state government's inquiry into water theft allegations on the Darling River as doing an autopsy with a spoon. Chris Minns says a number of ministers haven't been interviewed despite allegations of political interference with the Basin Plan.
The state opposition has voiced their disapproval of the credibility the state government's inquiry will have into the water theft allegations on the Darling River. The inquiry is being conducted by Ken Matthews.
Basically, the government's asked Mr Matthews to conduct an autopsy with a spoon. He doesn't have the tools he needs to get to the bottom of these serious allegations.
The opposition is furious that despite allegations of involvement in the water theft, current Water Minister Niall Blair has not been interviewed as part of the inquiry.
I can't understand how you can have an independent report that won't even interview the minister who's at the centre, who was presiding over when most of these allegations and serious concerns have come to light.
The Matthews inquiry also doesn't allow subpoena power for investigators and basically no prosecution if people lie to investigators. During the budget estimates last week, Labor renewed their calls for a judicial inquiry.
So why then are you not calling a special judicial inquiry where all these protections would be there, subpoena power would be available, the power to be able to put people under oath would be available, telling a lie to Mr Matthews would see you go to jail? Why hasn't that been taken? Water
Minister Niall Blair said the state government wanted to make sure there were prompt investigations into the matter and believes Mr Matthews will conduct a thorough investigation. An interim report was meant to be released last week but was postponed until after September 8. Mr Minns says the delay was convenient and allowed Mr Blair to evade questions during budget estimates.
This has been a disaster from the beginning.
Patrick Reinke, Southern Cross News.
Still to come in tonight's local news, a very special day for some university graduates in Port Lincoln. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Mayor of Whyalla says the city's future is with other Upper Spencer Gulf cities rather than the Eyre Peninsula. Her comments come after Council voted to join Port Augusta and Port Pirie on a new government initiative instead of its traditional partners further south.
The joint planning boards are set to link councils across the state on matters relating to land use and strategic economic planning, while a council says the new program will help local government to build a plan to ensure long-term prosperity.
This is big picture. So this will involve a whole range of areas, including economic development, tourism, health, education, community.
While a council was invited by its traditional partner, the Eyre Peninsula Local Government Association, to join their group. But in a twist, council instead voted at its last meeting to join with Port Pirie and Port Augusta to form an Upper Spencer Gulf partnership. Mayor Brewer says the move better suits the city's interests.
An industrial city with a mining heritage, a steelmaking heritage and a very strong engineering component. Eyre Peninsula is tourism, agriculture, aquaculture.
Going forward, it looks likely council will partner with the Upper Spencer Gulf on other issues. Mayor Brewer says the three cities are facing the same challenges and opportunities, meaning growing a partnership between the three will be beneficial in the long run.
We are part of Eyre Peninsula, but we're an industrial city, as the other two cities are, and it makes much more sense for us to be working with them. We don't need to compete with each other. We can actually work together.
John Hunt, Southern Cross News.
As the region continues to shiver through cold snaps despite heading into spring, firefighters are urging the community not to slack off on fire safety around the home. It comes after 3 house fires were caused by heaters across the state in the last week.
House fires usually come with no small damage bill, with heaters being the cause of 3 house fires in SA in the last week amidst cold weather. Port Augusta's MFS is urging residents to take care, even with electric blankets.
Electric blankets, yeah, they're designed to warm the bed up to, for when you climb in. They're not designed to have a lot of pressure on them throughout the night. That's the areas where they start getting breakdown of the cords, etc.
The MFS says the risk of damaging house fires is still high outside of the colder winter season. Its main message, flick the switch off when you're out.
Don't get up and walk away and leave them switched on, because they can build up a significant amount of heat and catch fire.
While there's been chillier temperatures further south, Port Augusta's mercury has been rising over the last week, but that doesn't mean the threat is over.
People need to be aware, especially with things like clothes dryers, making sure they clean the filters out on a regular basis. We recommend after every load. Also, keeping the area clean and tidy while you're doing that.
And with summer approaching, the MFS is urging residents to get their air conditioners serviced and even your solar heating.
The other area we need people to be aware of is their solar panels. They need to be serviced on a regular basis and kept clean, because we are starting to have a few issues with solar heater fires.
Amelia Simpson, Southern Cross News.
When we return after the break, a full wrap-up of the weekend grand final clashes in Broken Hill. Stay with us. Welcome back. 3 Port Lincoln women have graduated from the state's first Indigenous Pathways program. The program, developed by the University of South Australia, also saw a 75-year-old graduate, proving age is just a number.
Veda Betts never dreamed of graduating from high school after only completing Year 7. Her family, traditional Eyre Peninsula residents, could not afford to send her to Adelaide for her studies. But today, Veda became the oldest graduate of Port Lincoln's Indigenous Pathways program at the age of 75.
This is a good opportunity for me, and, it's really put me up high.
Veda was one of 3 students to graduate, enabling each of them to further their education at university, including her grandchild Delise.
My nana proved to me as well that if she can do it, then I can do it.
The initiative was the brainchild of UniSA to allow Indigenous students to receive a higher education without having to travel long distances to study.
Aboriginal students can study as a community, in their community, and it's a pathway into undergraduate study.
Today's ceremony, attended by community leaders, received high praise.
It really opens a lot of doors for people. It's really opened a lot of doors for me as well.
The graduates are now determined to further their studies with UniSA, hoping their success will inspire others in their community to do the same.
I'd like to influence others to go on to further their education and hopefully attend university one day.
I'll encourage the young ones to step on them stones and chase me up.
Jason Kemp, Southern Cross News.
History buffs in Port Pirie are certain to enjoy the latest exhibition at the Regional Art Gallery. While some might consider the smelter an eyesore on the local landscape, a photo exhibition aims to find the beauty of the city's most historical sites, as Rachel Nell reports.
From bullocks to modern freighters, the exhibition is a story of a place that's constantly changing.
The story is with the smelter, it's always been transforming, so it's part of that story from the late 1800s through to now.
Showcasing pieces of history with the next transformation in sight, the exhibition brings together the old and the new.
An amazing archive of documented historical photographs and paraphernalia from the smelter.
Going back over the decades, the exhibition displays equipment that shows just how life could be as a smelter worker.
Document and show to people the story of Port Pirie. It's got an over 125-year history and it's very much part of this city.
The exhibition has proven to be a hit with locals so far.
Because you'll probably want a couple of visits and bring your friends because it's quite intensive. There's a lot of information in these photographs and it's very engaging.
The Transport and Transformation exhibition can be found at the Port Pirie Regional Art Gallery until the 15th of October. Rachel Nell, Southern Cross News.
Well, the Broken Hill Souths have officially been crowned the A-grade footy champions for 2017. Patrick Reinke joins us from Jubilee Oval now, and the Roos were far too strong on the day, Pat.
Yeah, Fraser, South came into Saturday's A-grade grand final as the red-hot favourites, and they looked very tough to beat from the outset. And it wasn't the only premiership the red and white picked up over the weekend. There were two more going home with the Roos. The day got underway at 8 o'clock with the under-13s grand final, where North was too good for West, beating them by 14 points. West didn't falter in the under-15s though, defeating South by 30. It was one of the hotter days the footy season has seen. Hydration was vital for victory. In the women's final, South got its first taste of premiership glory for the day, defeating a hard-fighting North side. North had all the scoring shots in the first quarter, but just couldn't snag a goal. South managed to fight its way back to lead by just 1 point at the final change. A couple of early goals in the fourth quarter gave the Roos a buffer that North could not surmount. Sarah Gillespie was named best on ground, and it's now 2 in a row for the South girls. In the reserves, a fiery clash acted as a great curtain raiser for the A-grade main event. Despite what many called a 6-goal win, North could only muster 3 majors in the first quarter and led by 19 at the first change. South rallied and a tight tussle ensued. North edged ahead by the end of the third, but South hit back once again to secure its 7th straight premiership. And in the day's main event, South showed why it's the best team in town as the side kicked North off the park by 57 points. The Roos went against the wind to start off with, but that didn't stop Dylan Brown from kicking the opener. It was cloudy for most of the day, but as the sun broke through, so did South. The Roos leading by 20 points at the first break. A goal within the first minute of the second quarter saw South put the Bulldogs to the sword and have the game firmly in their grips by half-time. Cody Shawn was sensational all day, booting 6 majors, while Jordan Johns and Mark Purcell saw the sharing consistently in midfield. By the final change, despite a North fight back, South still led by 36. The floodgates opened in the fourth, with the Roos cruising home and recording an almost 10-goal win and a premiership to go with it. South's Mitchell Henderson was awarded the inaugural Stan Brooks Medal for best on ground after a dominant day in the ruck contests.
As a coach, you put it all in place and you hope that it rolls out. And today, these boys have done me so proud. They're a great bunch of blokes and a great bunch of footballers, and I'm just lucky enough to be the coach of this side.
Whipping around the other leagues, and there was an upset in Whyalla, with Central downing North by 50 points. The Magpies are now through to their first grand final since 2013, where they will face West, who hasn't lost a game all season. In the SGL, it was wins for South Augusta, Prop Risdon and Solomon Town, while in Port Lincoln, Marble Range secured a spot in the prelim after defeating Lincoln South by just 1 point. And finally, in the northern areas, Crystal Brook won its semi-final over Broughton, Mundura. So, Fraser, some big weekends ahead as the other leagues start to come to a close. And I'll be back tomorrow night to wrap up all the other sports from around the regions.
Thanks, Pat. Patrick Reinke in Broken Hill there. Well, stay with us. After the break, we'll take a look at the weather forecast for the rest of this week. Welcome back to the weather now. A fine day for some parts of our region. 18 the top in Port Augusta. A similar story for Whyalla. Fine in Broken Hill. 17. A wet and windy day in Port Lincoln. 14. Also cold with showers and winds in Adelaide. 13 degrees. On the satellite, speckled cloud over Victoria, Tasmania, southern SA and New South Wales, with a front and unstable southwesterly winds is generating showers, storms and heavy alpine snow. Patchy low cloud in the southwest with a moist onshore flow is causing the odd light coastal shower. On the waters, winds west-southwesterly between 25 and 30 knots, seas on 3 metres with a south-southwesterly swell. Sunrise just after 6:30, sunset at 6:03. A sunny day for Port Augusta tomorrow, a top of 17. Cloud about in Whyalla 16. Port Lincoln a fine day, a cool top of 14. Showers for Clare, just 11 degrees the maximum. And 14 degrees with showers in Adelaide. On the outlooks now, showers in Port Lincoln will clear up by Thursday with a top of 17. The same story for Cleve with some cloudy skies on Wednesday. Woodner will see clear skies with temps reaching the high teens by the end of the week. Cloud clearing by Thursday for Whyalla with 19 the forecast top. Sunshine all week in Port Augusta reaching 18 on Wednesday with a top of 21 on Thursday. And some showers for Kadina as well. Sunny for the next few days in Port Pirie, but showers to end the week with a top of 17. Showers and cool maximums all week in Clare, and a mostly fine week also for Broken Hill. And that's the local news this Monday. Thanks for your company. I'll have updates a little later. We'll see you back here tomorrow from 6:30. Enjoy your evening. Good night.